Hello and welcome to the 12th edition of Voices from the Valley. I'm Shereen Bhan. Well, the Valley really embodies the spirit of capitalism, which is about creative destruction. As you've seen through the course of our journey here over the past week, we're not just focusing on big tech. We're also focusing on smaller companies that are doing some pretty cutting-edge innovation. To talk to us about his startup story, joining us now is Arun Karthi Subramaniyan, the CEO of a company called Articul8, born inside Intel. It's hoping to capture the generative AI space, but to tell us how it intends to do that, joining us now is the man himself. Arun, it's great to have you here, joining us here on Voices from the Valley. Before I talk to you about Articul8, let's talk a little bit about your backstory and how you made it to the Valley to start with, from Chennai here to San Francisco.
Absolutely, Shereen. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for taking the time. It's fantastic to be talking to you. So, my story is actually in some ways pretty traditional and some ways pretty non-traditional. So traditional in the sense that I went to engineering school in India, I came here for my graduate studies, always loved everything that flies, and I'm an aerospace engineer by training, went all the way through to my PhD in aerospace engineering. And then spent more than a decade building jet engines and gas turbines and rocket systems for various things that fly. And most of my work was on both designing systems and doing large-scale data stuff. And then we ended up building digital twin frameworks for large systems that went into production. They're still in production today. That translated to doing large-scale data work for aviation, for power, for oil and gas, which then got me to Amazon, where they were building up their high-performance computing systems. Yeah. And we ended up building some of the largest models, or helping people build some of the largest models out there, which got me to Intel. Because Intel at the time was building out their overall cloud infrastructure, overall AI story. So they needed somebody who could come and help them build their AI business on top of silicon. And so that's really what got me to Intel. And really the allure was to build data centers anywhere we could, and actually run workloads that were not possible anywhere else in the world. And I knew, coming from my experience in Amazon, that that's the workload that the world is going to need. Now, this is early 2021, late 2021, 22, before ChatGPT is launched, any of that, right? So the tech community kind of sort of knew, but the rest of the world certainly hadn't woken up to it. No. And the real applications hadn't come out yet, right? So that was the time I was at Intel. We built out the infrastructure required to build these models. We went out, got a customer to actually say, look, give us your data, we will build a model for you that will be useful back to you. Now, this is all public information that happened to be Boston Consulting Group. They gave us their data, we built a model on their data sets, deployed them back into their environment. They built an application that was super useful for them. And that sparked the idea of saying, look, the application itself and the full software stack is equally valuable. And by the way, we deployed the first ever application back to them in November 2022. ChatGPT was launched end of November 2022. So it's a month before ChatGPT launched that we actually launched inside their environment. And once ChatGPT was launched, it was kind of a slam dunk for everybody to say, I want that. But
nobody was looking at AI with any scorn at all.
Not at all. None at all at that point in time, right? So it was really around the excitement of something completely new. It was almost a Christmas surprise, if you may. Because the first time we pitched it internally saying, look, this has to be a software business, we were kind of told, look, we're a hardware business. You need to actually focus on that, and software is great, but then it needs to enable hardware. But then the year rolls around. The next year, we already had contracts that we could actually go enable software sales from inside Intel. So it was already a viable business that is starting on. We were able to go get funding from outside to say, look, this is a viable business, we can actually go start it. And we ended up getting to a point where it was launched as an independent company. So it was born inside Intel, but it's launched as an independent company January 1st of 2024. Where Intel is an investor. They're a great strategic partner, and then later on they also became customers. But we are an independent venture, so we have to actually prove that we can actually exist as an independent company.
So, so born inside Intel and now your own independent venture. Pun intended, explain to me how you came up with the name Articul8.
Yes. So, like, looking for a name for a company is both personal and also a hard thing to do, partly because we're looking for something that has meaning, something that can actually express what you're trying to do, and also something that's catchy, like, because there's so many companies out there. I was trying to look for something that says that we are finding meaning from data, okay, and meaning from especially messy information. Articulating is like very much fits that. But if you look at the word articulate in English, it has 8 characters between A and E. So it's totally 10 characters, but 8 between A and E. So, and a little bit of geekiness where you have A8E. So there are a lot of systems that are named that way, like A16Z or say K8S. Those are all like that many characters in between. So I started writing A8E. Then I realized, well, A and 8, if you say articulate with an 8 at the end, it kind of rolls off your tongue as articulate. And it also has a technical meaning with an A8. It works well together.
It worked well, and this is serendipity. We have a pool table right behind you with an 8 ball.
Who would have thought? Exactly.
Who would have thought that that was going to happen?
And later on, I find out that 8 is a lucky number in China, and 8 is something that actually relates well with a lot of people. But it's really came out of the geekiness of trying to get 8 in between the two.
But now let's talk about the market opportunity and what you're going after and why you believe you have a right to win in a market where, a lot of people are trying to go after the same set of problems.
The problems we are tackling even from day one are problems that I would say are core to any large enterprise. Okay. What I mean by that is you go into a manufacturing company. The company manufactures stuff. Does it need legal? Does it need finance? Does it need HR? Absolutely. But those are all enabling functions. They're not the core for why the company exists. So we walk into a manufacturing company, we work with them for manufacturing first. Unless we enable their manufacturing operations significantly to be better, we won't touch a legal use case or a finance use case. However, it's not to say we never do finance use cases. We can work with a financial services company on helping them do better investment. But that's the core of their operations.
Exactly.
Exactly. And the reason why we focused on that is, first and foremost, that's the most high-value use cases. That's number one. The second one is that's also the most stickiest. So once you show value in something like that, it's very hard for you to be replaced. So our model mesh is the core of our IP, is a system that decides what to call when, what to use when, and based on the responses, decide should I continue using it or not. Right? And so it was a reasoning system to begin with. And we did that out of necessity. I wouldn't claim that we were so smart that we knew that's what was needed. We did it because that was what was required to solve a problem. It was almost necessity was the mother of invention. That's what happened. And we solved problem after problem in manufacturing, in aerospace, in automotive, in semiconductors that required a level of specificity that you cannot do with just a few models together, and you cannot also presuppose what the solution is. That's really what ended up being our core of our differentiation. In a different way, people ask the same question you asked us, right? So what's your moat? I have 2 answers to that, right? So the first one is a bit tongue-in-cheek, which is if Satya, after spending $15 billion, says, I don't have a moat, nobody else can quite pretend they have a moat, okay? However, I think about moats as resilience, which is how quickly can you respond and how resilient are you to changes and attacks. I'll give you a specific example, right? So we use open source models as general models. We don't build any general purpose models just because I just explained there's no differentiation. If I spend money on that, I might only be as good as somebody else. I'm not getting it for 3 days. So it's not something I would want to do. However, I can start from there and go forward, as long as it's contractually valid for me to do that. So we use it today, for example, a lot of our base models are Llama-based models. One of the models that we released was for energy. So it was with our partnership with EPRI and NVIDIA that we launched for the energy production and transmission worlds. And that model was built on Llama 3.1. That was the best model at the time. Now, that model was 3 times better than Llama 3.1 because it's a domain-specific model. General purpose model has never seen that kind of data set, so obviously it's better, no problem. We know how to train a model, so it's better. Now Llama 4 comes out, and we knew about that like in advance. We are great partners of Meta. They said, hey, can you test this? Right? And we test it. It's 70% better than Llama 4 because this model is trained on tasks that the Llama 4 was never trained on. It's never seen the data set. It got better on general purpose tasks. It got better on reasoning. However, it didn't get better on the specific tasks we went after. That's what I call resilience. It's not quite a moat yet, but because my 3x went to 70%. However, I don't have to immediately rebuild. I'll rebuild when it's convenient for me. And it's not just this one model. In addition to the energy model, I have an aerospace model. Then I have a table understanding model. And models for us is a means to an end.
Yeah.
It's not the core of what we do.
Yeah.
They're there because they give us advantage,
Yeah.
but that's not the only thing we do.
Since you're passionate about aerospace, that's the origin story for you as well. If you had an aerospace client today and you just showcased your technology at the Paris Air Show, what is it that you could do, perhaps, for a client in the aerospace?
In aerospace world, as you mentioned, it's a great day for us today because Paris Air Show, we actually launched our entire aerospace profile of portfolio of products, which go from design, manufacturing, analysis, and operations. So it's the full gamut of everything from, like, say, birth to the overall life cycle management of a product. What I mean by that is it needs to understand the domain, specificity, but it also needs to understand sequencing. What I like, meaning you start off with, say, understanding what the design is, and then it goes into manufacturing. But the manufacturing needs to understand supply chain. And the supply chain needs to understand finance and cost, and it also needs to understand what is the level in the world that it can actually be manufactured into. All of these processing steps need to come together. And it's no one model, it's no one system. And by the way, just to make that story happen, you need like 15 different vendors to talk to each other. All of them have their own data systems. All of them have their own misformats and mismanagement all over the place. We are actually an engine that can talk to all of them, right? And it's in a way, think of us as the glue that actually connects different buckets that never talk to each other. It might be one person talking to your sourcing team. Now imagine your design team has the full information of everything that is sourced. Or your manufacturing team knows how it's going to be in operation. That connection is really what we are enabling.
Given where you are today, and it's only been a year since you actually kind of birthed out of Intel and launched to the world, what are you seeing in terms of customer and client traction?
So I would say the business traction is better than anything we could have possibly hoped, not just for us, but for the entire industry. Part of that is everybody has moved on from doing POCs to actually doing real things. So the expectation is very high, but they want to do real things. And not only want to do real things, they're also investing in making sure that they can up-level themselves. I would say companies fall in 3 large buckets today. All of those buckets are still investing. Right? So that's a very big difference from any other technical sale that you can make. But the 3 buckets are, the first one are people who already tried, spent a lot of money, know that these are the things that they can do, here are the gaps, they need somebody to come help them. That's one bucket. The second bucket is they're still in the process of trying things out, and they think they can do everything, but they have not yet hit a wall. They're like, like, I think I can get it done. Like, my vendor is saying they'll help me, my cloud provider is saying they'll help me, I'll do it myself. Maybe some of the use cases they will. Some of the use cases are so complex that they'll realize that they need somebody else to come help them. That's the second bucket. The third bucket is, I know I need to do something in AI. I haven't really done anything. I'll just wait and see like what the rest of the folks are doing, where they're failing, and I'll catch up. I'll catch up very quickly. My message to the second and third buckets is, work on problems that you can solve, no problem, but then work on problems that are most critical for you. You're going to need help at some point. Getting help is actually going to get you accelerated. That's the main thing. The second thing is the third bucket. Waiting here is unlike waiting in any other time in industry. The reason for that is, think of being in 1994 or 1996. And you not only know about the internet, but you also know about the financial implications of how to actually make it financially viable and profitable for you. It was very, very few people in 1996 that could have predicted what happened. Today, people can actually see it. They can measure financial value, and they're investing because of that. Last year, I wouldn't have said that, because last year was more about people saying, my board is telling me to do AI, I just have to do something. Now it's a lot more intentional, a lot more meaningful. You're going to see your competitors break away like they never broke away, because they are being very intentional about where they're investing in AI. They're not just randomly saying, just throw AI everywhere. Use it in places that you can't get to an outcome before. You can actually get to an outcome before today. and do it intentionally where you can measure outcomes.